Good morning. We have a full day left, 24 hours and a bit. Please continue to make best use of this precious opportunity, practicing together. I trust from your own experience, your own body, you have come to see what an obstacle, what an impediment, what an obstruction the body can be, and at the same time, how it can itself become part of the path, part of the way. It can become something that aids us along the way rather than gets in the way. Of course, it's not the body, it's what our mind does with it. The same thing with the breath. We can actually, as has been mentioned, get stuck in the chest or somewhere when we're breathing. Perhaps trying too hard to breathe properly, we mess up the natural breath. Again, you can see, I trust, from your own experience, your own breath, what it is to obstruct yourself, to get in the way, and what it is to just give all yourself to it. Then the breath becomes itself the way through. What then remains is what is still going on in the mind. This is, in a sense, the most delicate part of the practice. For example, finding ourselves in certain very deep states of mind. Again, this can become an obstruction, an obstacle. It becomes something, oh, I want to stay here. I want to keep this. In itself becomes an impediment on the way. Or, if we're practicing properly, whatever state we may enter, very, very profound, boundless contentment, peace, or perhaps excruciating, very painful, a pain in the knee. It makes no difference what it is, but what do we do? What does the mind do? When it is released, it is able to experience what is present at the moment fully, without denying it, without grasping onto it. You can see both of these are a kind of an obstruction, a kind of an obstacle, an impediment on the way. But when we are able to fully embrace, so to speak, fully accept, Monica used the term surrender, fully surrender to what? To the present experience, whatever it is, whatever it is. That experience becomes the way, not an obstacle or an impediment. It becomes the way. There are endless, countless Zen expressions that point this out. One of my favorites is three simple, well, not really simple, but three Chinese characters. And it happened to be written on the little stand where the head monk, so I guess in this case it would be here, right here. And there's a little drawer where the incense is. Used to be matches, now they use a lighter. And then on the top, there's a place where you would put the incense. So it also, right next to it, would be the wooden clappers that they use. So it's a kind of an incense box that the head monk has. He lights incense before each Zazen period. Often there's nothing written there. There's just a little piece of wood to where the incense is, in front of the incense. But there's an incense stand like this for the head monk, obviously brought from Japan. It was at the Tannenhof. Have any of you been to the Tannenhof outside of München? Yeah, now we meet at another place, the Domicilium, but years before that we met at a place called the Tannenhof, which is connected with a Rinzai Zen monastery, so they have a lot of that paraphernalia. But this one is very nice because I've never seen it before. There's the three Chinese characters written right there. And what it says is, seeking is going astray. Seeking itself is already going astray. For the mind to seek, to try, to attempt, to push. The seeking itself is going astray, going the wrong way. It's especially sublime because this is written there next to the head monk who, after lighting the incense with those three characters right there, he will get up and proceed to beat a bunch of especially the new monks with the kesak, with the warning stick. Meanwhile, here it says, seeking is going astray. Do you understand? It may look like, oh, he's hitting them because they're not seeking, they're not trying hard enough. But if he's a worthy monk, as this head monk is, he's beating them because they're still seeking. As I said before, the mind must come to its own end. It must come to rest. This is saying the same thing. We can't seek to put the mind at rest. That very seeking is the mind not at rest. You see? That's why the discursive mind, in a sense, is endless. It will endlessly repeat the same mistake, and it doesn't know how to get out of it. Why? Because the very attempt to get out of it is just to continue the same cycle. What could be called a vicious cycle. A vicious cycle. We all know this when we begin practice, right? Sit there and, okay, gonna be mu there, is this mu? It kind of feels pretty good, but then if it's mu, it's, well, I guess, no, I'm thinking, this is just mental masturbation. And so the marvelous practice of Zazen, it's not the only practice, but it's a marvelous one, of letting the mind come to its own end. And as strange as it sounds, we don't do that by simply not doing anything, because as you well know, what happens if you don't do anything? Well, your mind will go into default. It will start to think about the things that you usually think about. How's it going? This is pretty stupid, isn't it? You believe I spent all this money for this? Or whatever. Don't make the mistake of seeing, aha, see, that's how difficult Zazen is. No, that's not how difficult Zazen is. Zazen isn't even one. It's the simplest thing in the world. It's your mind that's so complex. It's not the practice. You see the mistake the mind makes, huh? Oh, this practice is too difficult. I can't even get the breathing right, my goodness. No, it's the mind, that's all. When the mind is given the proper attitude, body, breath, and mind are regulated, huh? Yes, this is a discipline, that's right. Why? Because Zazen is such a different... No, it's not. It's because the mind is so wrapped up in things, and so we give it the breath, which isn't a thought. We give it the breath itself. With the body regulated and with the mind already coming to rest. Then a retreat like this is simply a way to complete that. It's not really a process, but from the outside, when we're struggling with it, well, then it is a process. But it's a process that ends up in this. Oh, it's this. I've never been apart from it for a moment. How could I be? But until you fully come home to that, not as a nice thought or idea or something you read or heard, but through your own body, breath, and mind. Until you come to that, well, it's a pretty neat idea, isn't it? Pretty Zenistic, isn't it? But you have to come to it through your own practice. And that practice allows the mind to come fully to rest, so that we can then see, realize with every sense what is here. And once you really realize that, you don't go running off again. We have a good 24 hours left. Don't waste your time making complications, adding more difficulties to the mind. See what your mind is doing. Nobody can do that for you, it's obvious, right? But that's all you have to do. You don't have to attain some profound state. You have to simply see, realize your whole body, breath, and mind. What we call this mind, which includes everything. What is that mind doing? What is your mind doing? Not what do you want it to do, or what did Jeff tell you you're supposed to make it do? No. What is your mind actually doing? And when you really see through it right there, it can't help but collapse. Collapse. It has no support. It has no support unless you feed it. It's not me, you know. It's not the weather. It's not your mother or your brother. You're feeding it. No one else. You may not even be fully conscious of it, it's true, but that's why the Zazen must be thoroughgoing, so that you see with every bone, every fiber of your body, what this mind is doing. And you don't need to replace it with something else. That's what the ego self would see. Okay, got rid of that one now. Bring it on. I want a big enlightened one now. Huh? A much better one. Huh? New and improved. That's just continuing. It's a profound symptom of the same dis-ease. You don't need to replace it with anything. Not even the Zen nothing. You don't need to replace it with anything. This is the truly natural, sometimes Zen calls it ordinary mind. That doesn't just mean, oh, okay, my ordinary mind, I go. No, ordinary in the sense that it's free of any kind of entanglement, free of any kind of tinkering, cogitating, manipulating. That's the truly ordinary mind. You see dishes in the sink, well, they need, so you wash them. That's ordinary mind. You see the dishes in the sink and you say, you know, yesterday I washed them, so today, this is not the ordinary mind. When Zen speaks of the natural, truly natural or ordinary mind, it means without anything added on. Look at nature. Where is the mind of nature? Huh? Where is the self-directing nature? It's now, summer is beautifully turning into autumn, fall. Huh? Who does that? You? Me? Well, in some religions, of course, this could be answered very well with something like God. But we don't need to go there. Nature. Let's look at nature itself. Not objectified, you know, but nature, the nature of nature. I would say the nature of nature is that it's being without self. There's no self there. And yet, is there anything more beautiful, more dignified, more sublime than nature? How does it do that? It does it because there's no self. It doesn't need it. You don't need a self for summer to turn to fall. Now, consider well yourself. What is the nature of that? Is it big? Is it small? Is it better? Is it worse? Is it deluded? Is it enlightened? Throw all of that away and then see what it is. Immediately. Directly. There is no other way. Otherwise, it's not the mind, it's something you've turned it into. You've objectified. Well, maybe you can say it's a shadow of it or a glimpse of it, but it's not itself. And so you go tripping on over your feet again and again and again and again. Before this very mind has taken shape, has taken form, has turned into something, before you have objectified it, wonderful, terrible, whatever, before all of that. When I say before, I mean before right now. What is it? It's the most obvious thing in the world, and yet you can't turn it into an object, can you? That's right. That's how marvelous it is. It is beyond conception. You can conceive it endlessly, in endless different ways if you like, but again, that's just a shadow. And so we cannot be fully satisfied. We cannot come to rest in that. But when we come from it, rather than trying to go to it, get to it, closer, bigger. When we find ourselves naturally, seamlessly coming from it, well, you can't get out of it then. However you leap up, jump up, get frustrated or angry, you can't leap out of this. But you must confirm this in your own bones. That's the point of retreat. If anyone has a question or concern from out of the practice, please feel free to ask. Bill, your sitting is finally getting settled. Now lower the cushion, gradually if you need, gradually, but that's way too high. Do your knees hurt? Good, well they're going to hurt if you keep it that high. Huh? Gradually lower it and you'll find it's much better, okay? Gradually. Does anyone have a question or concern from out of the practice? Please, for the benefit of all. Thijs.
It's hard to ask a question because it probably makes things only more complicated. But I'll try anyway. When I sit, all kinds of things happen in my mind. And sometimes it's clear, very little or few thoughts. And I have the feeling my mind can't handle that yet. Because and this sounds really, really complicated, it has to reflect on that there's nothing there, only the perception itself. So normally it's all kind of thoughts going around in my mind. When I see wood, I think it's a piece of wood. When I see this, when the thoughts are away, my mind is, I think, difficult to explain, but doesn't know what to do with that. At a loss. I'm at a loss, or my mind is at a loss. So very soon that clarity, and I don't know what to keep hang on to it, but I think it goes away quite quickly because my mind says, what's happening here?
Well, it's a good point, because when you go through the practice, it's often described. It depends on the person and many things, but there's a point for most people in the practice where they feel at a loss, completely lost. They don't know where to go. It's important to see this is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. When you're ready, go there all the way. But if if there's still some fear, again, see what it is. What is there to be afraid of? Not knowing, see it. What we're doing with our mind ordinarily is we think we know. So we build up this whole construct. I know about whatever it may be. Huh? I know that. I know who I am. I'm me. What's the problem? But when we give ourselves to the practice, all of those conceptions, the self-construction, the world that we create, in a very, very good way, it starts to dissolve. Well, it's not real anyway. But as long as we hold on to that or attach to that, that's my reality. Well, there's going to be some dissonance there, right? But when you realize it's a delusion. It's the self-delusion that is the delusion of a self, playing itself out in endless ways. None of it satisfying, but what do we know? That's what we know. Giving yourself to genuine practice, all that stuff starts to fall away. Once again, as long as you are attached to those things, as long as you still crave that, although you already know deep in your heart, it's not real, it's not truly satisfying, but it is what you know, at least you think you know, right? So you go back to that. Yeah. Then you start to have this experience, giving yourself properly to the practice, it happens. Wait a minute. Like a black hole, but a very good one. A very good one. You see? Because you're not escaping into your mental constructs. That's right. So in the beginning, yes, it can seem it can be like a dissonance, huh? Again, no need to push it, but just make it clear. Just make it clear. You've seen the mental constructs. You've been there 1,000, 10,000 times. Where does it go? It goes nowhere fast. Huh? So don't worry, they'll be there when you get back if you want. Yeah. But in Zazen, allow yourself, again, in a very good way, just to fall into that unknown, so to speak, inconceivable. Literally, yes, it's inconceivable. Do you think reality is just a concept? No. So, yes, it is wonderfully inconceivable. But as long as we're attached to our concepts, well, yes and no, okay, but could I conceive that, please? Could you give me a concept for that, and then I can just play with it? No. You see?
I think I'm about AJ with posture correction. I was sitting like this. Probably physically shying away. And pat on the back.
But again, when you see this is the way you must go, this is the way you must go. And what is it? Don't have a friggin' clue. That's the best way. If you start thinking about, okay, it's going to, yeah, you know, Yunmen, Zen master Yunmen said this, and oh, Gautama Buddha said this, and whatever. It's useless at this point, in a very good way, because this allows you to come into direct contact with it. Again, when you see, that's what must be done. How to say, I'd be afraid of all those concepts. That's the stuff that you should be afraid of, not returning here to this, which is not a concept. So it's a good point. Probably everyone here in one way or another has experienced that. Wait a minute, do I really want to go there? I'm familiar with this stuff, so let's stick with this. Well, okay, if you want to do that, but when you realize, finally, to use the word, to surrender to that, to not know through and through. I had a friend, a dear friend, he's passed away since, an old Japanese guy, Confucian scholar, martial arts master, very, very learned and experienced guy. And he told me, when I got to that point in the practice, I didn't know that 1 + 1 makes 2. In a very good way, you see? That very manipulation, cogitation, calculation, one more, now we got 2. That very calculation was no longer functioning in his mind in a very good way. Of course, when you go out in the world, as Hakuin often says, count your change at the market. Yes, but here in the depths of Zazen, you don't need to count your change. To not know that 1 + 1 = 2. This is very profound. It's not stupidity. But you see, it's arriving at what is inconceivable. You can't stop there either, of course. That has to flip. When that flips over, you know from the inside. But as a process, yes, Getting to the point where you don't know. You're no longer fooling yourself with your intellectual knowledge, is a very valuable place. But you can't stop there either. Just when you're ready, sit right through it. Don't know a thing. Okay? Thank you. Does anyone else have a comment or can speak from their experience? Bruno.
That specific point that you mentioned, is it then saying that you as observer are not there anymore?
Yes. Yeah. How to say it? So much meditation, and there's much value to it. So many kinds of meditation are a matter of observing, feeling your foot touch the ground, feeling your foot. Now, it's very valuable kind of what we speak of now as mindfulness practice, bringing the mind to full attention. Very valuable. But the point of Buddha's practice, if we speak of awakening, is precisely when that observer, that view, me viewing it, when that falls away, then we see. They say, then you see with your ears, or you see without seeing. It's a paradoxical way to explain it, but it's very accurate. Then you see without a self-viewing. You are what you see. That separation is gone. Yeah.
I've got a question about being tired. Like last night I was very tired, and then you try to focus. Everything becomes a muddle.
Blurred. Yeah.
Breathing helps. That's not a problem. But you get the feeling of everybody sees you. It's not working. Then I go to my room and I say I'm not going to do night sitting, which I do. But I lie on my bed and then I'm clear and I can't sleep. So I could have done night sitting.
Well, it sounds like you did, it's just you were in bed.
It isn't because of the posture, whereas it's terrible when you have no thoughts or so. Everything is such a muddle.
Muddle, huh? It's blurry, huh?
And you can't grab to anything. There's nothing to hold on.
And what do you want to hold on to?
What do you want to focus
On? Practically speaking, yeah, if you're tired, there are things you can do to wake yourself up. Drink some tea, get your heart pumping, walk quickly, splash some water on your face. There are many things you can do. But you may just be genuinely very tired and need to rest. Well, after meals, we do have time to take a rest. But there's a way to practice when you're exhausted. But if you're trying to make it another way, I'm not exhausted. Well, you are. Practice that way. Practice exhausted. You understand? If you're tired, be tired.
Because also try to fight, to stop fighting. But I'm not in control anymore.
That's right. Were you before? So it's a valuable lesson, huh? Maybe the trying to be in control is what makes you so tired? Anyway, there's a wonderful koan, if you want to introduce that, from the Blue Cliff record. There's a very common question, kind of like, what is Zen, or who am I? What is the meaning of Bodhidharma coming from the West? Or really, literally, what is the intent? What's the point? He made this long journey, but if we're all already kind of Mahayana Buddhism enlightened anyway, why did he have to do that? It took months, maybe even over a year, to make the trip. Why did he do that? So what is Zen? And there are literally hundreds, if you look through the Zen records, hundreds of answers to that question. And one of them in the Blue Cliff record is, after a long sitting, I feel tired. It's a very nice answer. Probably because that monk was expecting some kind of superhuman sit through the night superpower. And so the master, knowing that, said, after a long sit, I feel tired. How about you? Oh, but you're not supposed to be that way. You're supposed to be ramrod straight. Oh, there's a time for that, I assure you. There's a time for that. But there's also a time when you get tired. Oh, sit then. Okay? Or, if needed, take a break. Okay?
Talking about breaks.
Yes, yeah, we're just about time. Maybe a quickie?
I realize that the body and breath is getting much easier and easier sitting a long time. But so I don't have pain anymore. Do my breathing well, but it used to help a lot with pain to get more focused, not thinking about all these things. So now I'm sitting good and doing everything else. But now I have, for my feeling, more thoughts because the pain really helps to focus.
Well, increase the pain if you want. Sit full lotus, something like that. Sit through the breaks if you want. Go ahead. If you're a glutton for punishment, as we say. But you have to see where the thoughts come from. If it's just a kind of a gap where you feel, and then the thoughts come, well, you need to deepen the samadhi, huh? Deepen the samadhi. Huh? It has nothing to do with whether you're comfortable or not. So, see what you're doing. You're generating the thoughts. You have a little space there, huh? Oh. And then what? Then your mind goes, well, the practice must be thoroughgoing. Okay? So I will not interfere here on the break timer. I may have to whip myself. But if needed, I would gladly do so. Again, thank you all for listening so intently and for your own questions and comments from your experience. It's invaluable. It's invaluable. Let us continue right up to the end, huh? Together.